Just as striking as it was in that studio back in August last year, the Hyundai Ioniq 6 arrives amidst an ever-growing electric car market, providing a futuristic choice for those who are perhaps fed up of the overwhelming amount of electric SUVs. With its striking design, impressive technology and practical elements, the Ioniq 6 is an enticing package. But does it rise above other electric vehicles on the current UK market? Well, let's take a closer look. Hyundai's latest design language is showcased in the Ioniq 6. It's nothing short of stunning. Well, to me at least. Turns out that quite a few of you disagreed with me last time. With its pixel design cues, it stands out in a sea of dull Teslas.
What'd you say? Are you being a wise guy with me?
The sculpted body, dynamic lines, and aerodynamic silhouette create a sleek and modern appearance that should appeal to many. Although despite its modern design, the 6 almost looks a bit timeless in a way. Editors, turn this black and white. The 6 looks like it could have been designed for the future, but it also looks like, well, it could have been designed 30 years ago. Which do you think it is? Let me know in the comments down below. I think a lot of this timeless design comes from the fact that its desire to mimic a poor man's Porsche, and that hasn't gone unnoticed. Some people winced at its attempt of offering luxury on a budget. But exactly how much of a budget am I actually talking about? The 6 starts from £47,000.
Are you joking?
That's £3,000 more than a Tesla Model 3. So, does it have the stats to back up a spenny price tag? And more importantly, are people willing to spend nearly £50,000 on a Hyundai?
Yes. No.
Something that I hadn't quite comprehended when I saw this car in the studio is just how long it actually is. It's nearly 3 meters long, and that means when parking it, it hangs over car parking spaces. But that does mean you get a ton of interior space. Wait until I show you how much legroom this car actually has. Boot space, despite its sloping roofline, is still pretty decent. You get 401 litres of space. So that's kind of pretty much the same as the Polestar 2.
Ah! Oh!
It's not quite as much as the Tesla Model 3 or the BMW i4. And because it is that saloon opening, it doesn't make it as practical as the Polestar either, because lifting things into this boot can be a tad awkward. But actually it goes back really far, and you also have the ability to pull these little levers and you can flatten the back seats as well. So it may not be class leading, but I can't see it being too much of an issue. And all versions get an electronic boot as standard. I do have a bit of a love-hate relationship with the styling of this car. I'm not quite decided on the front, but I do love the rear. And this is really where those Porsche elements come in, especially with the double spoiler, and you also have this perforated rear spoiler at the top here. That's very, very Porsche. In fact, I put it right next to my boss's Porsche to show just the size difference and some of the similarities. Unfortunately, just like the Ioniq 5, it doesn't get a rear wiper, which is going to annoy some people. I haven't found it to be an issue, but I know that some people have been struggling with their Ioniq 5s without the rear wiper. You've got loads of those pixelated lights at the back here. Almost perhaps a few too many to some people's tastes. It could be a little bit busy. I really like it. It looks fabulous at night. You've got this brake light at the top here which lights up, and then you've got the full lighting across the back, and you've also got the Ioniq 6 built into those lights. I really love it. I think it looks super futuristic. I think it looks really smart, but I understand that it's probably not going to be to everybody's tastes.
Not for me, mate.
In the UK, we love massive alloy wheels, and that means that every version of the Ioniq 6 actually gets 20s as standard in this two-tone design. I mean, they look fantastic, but if you're a little bit like me and like colliding with curbs, well, you better get your alloy wheel guy on speed dial. But Yeah, it's Tish. Yeah, I've done it again. Coming on to the cabin of the Ioniq 6, and this is perhaps the first time I felt a little bit disappointed in this video. It's not quite as high quality as I remember or I'd expect for a car of £47,000. This entry-level model doesn't get the leather like in the car that I tested. Instead, it's cloth, and it doesn't feel the highest quality. There is a bonus, and that's the fact that it is electrically adjusted as standard, so that's a really nice plus point. But it just feels a little bit cheap. Also, these door cards, there's a lot of plastic going on. It kind of gets away with it because it's all dark colours, so it's not too offensive. But personally, I think they could have done better by wrapping these doors in more of a leather effect, something like you get on the dashboard. The dashboard I really like. You've got these wings around the edges of the dash, which actually are to fit your reversing cameras if you go for the top spec car. But here they kind of give it a fighter jet feel, and I quite like that. There's a lot of ambient lighting as well. You've got ambient lighting which runs along the centre console. You also have it in the scoops of the door cards. It feels quite special. And then the centre console. Again, materials are not that great, and I also don't like when brands leave a lot open. So with these cup holders, I really wish there was something that I could cover up the cup holders with. You've got a bit of wireless charging up the front there. I've left my phone in the back, but you've got a bit of wireless charging up the front there, and I've tested it. It works quite well. Something I found a little bit weird, you've got one USB slot at the front, and then inside this kind of centre console here, you've got two USB slots. Now I carry a USB cable, so great that I can plug it in, but by plugging this in, it doesn't actually function on the Apple CarPlay. So I imagine, although I haven't tested it, that you need to plug it into the USB to get Apple CarPlay to work, which is a bit of a shame. And I did think that Apple CarPlay was also wireless, but I've connected my phone and I can't see any way that I can get Apple CarPlay to come up instead. Usually it comes up straight away, doesn't it? It's not actually showing on this infotainment system, which is a bit of a shame because I use that a lot. Also, compared to the Ioniq 5, you've got a solid centre console. In the Ioniq 5, you have a section which you can manually slide forward and back, giving you loads of space in the front, a bit like you've got in the back of this car. Here, you've got more of a conventional tunnel. It's still got storage underneath, but it's more conventional in its styling. But I actually quite like it. It means that everything is easy to access, and also it feels kind of more driver focused, which I'll talk about a bit more when we go and drive it. But you're kind of tunneled in a bit more, which actually I do prefer when I'm spending time with a car like this. The infotainment system is the same in the Ioniq 5, except you've got a little bit of a kind of barrier around it. These are not my favourite screens. I know a lot of people like them, but I love the screens in the i4. You've got a much more connected screen. This, to me, the way that you have the kind of black outline around them, I just think it feels a little bit cheap. I do think you can change this to be black instead, and then it's not quite as obvious, but I've not found how to do that yet, and I've been playing around with it, but I can't work it out. You have got a physical section for your climate control, although it is touch sensitive, but you do have a section dedicated to that, and I really love that. You've also got shortcut buttons along here as well, which makes it really easy to use. Hit that and you can go straight to your map. And here is something where this car is even better than the Ioniq 5. Because one of the irritations with the Ioniq 5 is the fact that to get your heated steering wheel or heated seats, you had to either go all the way into the system or you had to ask it to do it, and it doesn't always update. However, on here, we've got a shortcut button, and that will take us straight to the heated seats and heated steering wheel, which are both standard as well, by the way. If you wanted the ventilated seats, then you can go for the top spec model, and that gets loads of equipment. But let's quickly go over which equipment this car gets, because it is a lot. So it gets a rear view camera as standard, you get adaptive cruise control, and I'll talk a bit more about the systems when I drive it. You get the wireless charging pad, Apple Apple CarPlay and Android Auto when you can get it working. You get satellite navigation, you get keyless start, you also get automatic lights, automatic rain sensing wipers, and then if you go to the next spec above, you get full leather interior. You also get a 360-degree parking camera, you get extra safety systems, and you also get a Bose surround system. Now, for a few £1,000s more, when you're already spending the best part of £50,000, I really think it's just worth going for that top spec model, so you get a little bit of added luxury. The steering wheel, though it appears to be the same as the Ioniq 5, it has been slightly tweaked, so it still has these... Do they light up? Oh. They don't light up. Interesting. I was about to say it has these little squares which light up, but it doesn't. It does just have a solid dots like it does on the Ioniq 5, so I'm either thinking you have to go for the spec above, which will get the light up lights which do different things in the functions, or maybe it was just the concept car that got that and we're not going to get that in the UK. I will pop it on the screen which of those answers is correct, please. But there are some things I can talk about other than the little lights on the steering wheel. You've also got the buttons. So on the Ioniq 5, these are actually kind of like completely smoothed over. They're not haptic buttons, not like you get on some of the ID products, but they're kind of merged together. Whereas on this car, they have been separated. And also, very strangely, on this car, you've got volume control this side, adaptive cruise control on this side. But on the Ioniq 5, they're flipped, which is kind of strange.
Weird.
Legroom in the back of this car will never not leave me shocked. It is so generous. I've not moved this front seat back from my driving position, and I'm around 5'5", 5'6" for reference. And look at that. I can cross my legs, I can lounge, I'm so comfortable. Headroom? It's not quite as good. I've got a couple of inches left, maybe a little bit more if I took the headband off. But to show just how much legroom there actually is, watch this. I can really comfortably sit in the footwell. That's how much room there is. And once again, I haven't moved that driver's seat. There's loads more room in the front there as well. So everybody has a ton of space. Even the middle seat, you sit up a little bit higher, but only fractionally, and you've still got lots of legroom. This centre console does come a little bit further back, so you can't quite cross your legs as comfortably as you can on the outside seats, but it's still really, really good. Amenities are decent too. I've got 2 USB-C ports in this like funny kind of pig-faced center console here. I've got a little bit of storage in there. I've also got a pull-out armrest, got a couple of cup holders, no through loading, which is a bit of a shame. I've also got heated seats in the back here, electric windows, although I would hope, and I've got storage, quite a lot of it as well. I've got somewhere to pop my mobile phone, there you go, in that little section there, somewhere to put a drink down there, you've got the pockets. Yeah, it's just a great executive saloon. Don't keep that in.
No.
The Ioniq 6, like a lot of cars that I've tested recently, has a bit of a feature which in some cases will be helpful and in a lot of cases will be mildly infuriating, and that is traffic sign recognition. And you must think, well, that's not new, Tish. A lot of cars have traffic sign recognition, which is true, and it's helpful because when you don't know the speed limit, it will help you out by displaying it on the screen. However, the Hyundai Ioniq 6 is fitted with a feature where it will bleep at you every time it changes the speed of the traffic, which again, I guess could be a little bit helpful. Although if it's changing often, then you will get quite a lot of beeps. And if you already thought that was quite a lot of beeps, then wait till I tell you the next thing. Also, as you start to go over the speed limit, even by 1 mile per hour, the car will bleep at you a further 3 more times. Now let's face it, Nobody should be speeding, but occasionally we all do go over the speed limit even by 1 mile per hour, and this can be really irritating. The car's plugged in, I've got my coffee, and this car is fitted with 220 kilowatt charging capabilities. So that means if you find a charger like this at GridServe with the free 50 kilowatt chargers, I can be back on the road in as little time as it takes me to drink this coffee. If you are charging from a home wall box, it will take around 8 hours to do the same job, but still pretty impressive figures. Now that's just enough time for me to have a little bit of a moan, and that's about the way that I say Hyundai, or Hyundai as they'd like me to pronounce it. Yes, I do know the real way of pronouncing it, but I guess I'm a little bit stubborn. But there's a couple of reasons why I don't agree with this being a good idea. For one, I'm dyslexic. So when it comes to pronouncing words, often or not, I'll pronounce them how I think they're spelled. Hyundai is the way it's spelled, it's the way that I'd like to say it. And secondly, I find it a little bit of an obstruction when it comes to talking to people about electric cars. People already have a lot of anxious feelings when it comes to talking to a sales executive. So if you then don't really know how to pronounce the name of the car company, it might put you off going in. I understand that the searches for Hyundai have gone up in the time that they've done this campaign. However, I still just think it may be putting some people off. But I just want to put your mind at rest. I don't care however you say it. Hyundai, 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 as they say in America. Any way is correct, and I can promise you if you walk into your local car dealer, they'll be happy with whatever you say. I worked at one, and believe me, I heard all sorts of things, but we always know what you're talking about. The eGMP platform for the Ioniq 6 provides customers with the option of either a two-wheel drive powertrain, which offers 228 PS and 350 Nm of torque, or an all-wheel drive powertrain, and this gets 325 PS and a whopping 605 Nm of torque. All models will also feature the longer range 77.4 kilowatt-hour battery. Outside of the UK, there is a second battery option which is slightly smaller and offers a little bit less range, but the UK have chosen to only do the long mile car. Also, because of the UK's decision to fit all cars with 20-inch wheels, this does reduce the amount of miles that our Ioniq 6 will do. Elsewhere, outside of the UK, with smaller wheels, it can achieve nearly 380 miles. But because of that 20-inch choice, it reduces to 338. And if you go for the higher spec model, still in the rear wheel drive, but if you go for the higher spec model which gets those little wing mirrors, nearly killed a chicken. That will, not a chicken, some kind of bird. We didn't, it's fine. What was I saying? If you go for the smaller wing mirrors, this will actually improve your range by just 1 mile. So it's really not much of a difference. The sleek shape of the Ioniq 6 has been inspired by the streamliners of the 1930s, and the ultimate goal, well, that's efficiency. And the Ioniq 6 has a seriously impressive drag coefficient figure of just 0.21. This is one of the best in the game, and it's so much better than the Ioniq 5s. And it is this shape which gives this car so many more miles over the Ioniq 5 because they have the same battery combination. However, because of its ability to be much sleeker and far more aerodynamic, it's achieved 338 miles compared to the Ioniq 5, which achieves 315. Naive question to ask, will people pay more than £50,000 for a Hyundai? Because we already know the answer to that question. The uptake of Ioniq 5s has been incredible. You can't go far nowadays without spotting one, especially around the charge points. And it's easy to see why. These new models are ticking all of the boxes. However, is the Ioniq 6 better than a Tesla? It's the kind of question that I'm sick of hearing. The slightly more affordable price tag and the impressive charging network will always continue to keep Tesla buyers content. However, I do think that Hyundai have now given buyers just more choice than ever before. I'm just slightly disappointed that it doesn't have a more affordable price tag. The Hyundai Ioniq 6 represents an attractive option for those seeking unique styling, good practicality, and a decent amount of performance. The Ioniq 6 may not reign supreme in every category, but it boasts enough allure to compete with some of the most established electric vehicles on the current UK market. But as ever, I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you love it or loathe it?